Tatsuki Fujimoto's creative works from throughout all of his career have been absolutely flush with influences from media all around the world, from movies, anime, dramas, and of course, other manga. Chainsaw Man is no different, of course, with its own anime even wearing the movie-influenced nature of Fujimoto's writing on its sleeve. Though, the more I reread the series, the more I couldn't shake a certain feeling. Some elements of Chainsaw Man felt like they were very similar or maybe directly inspired by another series that I've been doing a deep dive on for a while now, that being Kamen Rider. So, I wanted to go through Chainsaw Man and discuss where I believe the manga may have been inspired by Kamen Rider. Now this video will obviously contain spoilers for Chainsaw Man, including Part 2, as well as some Kamen Rider series, though I won't be discussing the stories in detail of the Kamen Rider series, more so the overall tone and theme. So if you want to avoid spoilers, you have been warned. Now, I should preface this video by saying what I'm going to be discussing is mostly my own speculation based off trends I've seen from the series, as well as ideas I've had for a while now, and of course the essence of both works. As well, I'm going to be speaking about Kamen Rider in a more general term, and use examples from throughout the franchise. But I know there are some seasons that don't play heavily into the series' own traditions. Those obviously tend to be exceptions to the rules. So with that all out of the way, let's begin first with how the two series have a sort of weird connection thanks to the history of manga. Starting first with Kamen Rider and its creator, Shotaro Ishinomori. Now, Ishinomori is a legendary figure in not only tokusatsu, but in manga as a whole. Working originally under the godfather of manga, Ishinomori would carve a path within the manga industry with some of his most groundbreaking works like Cyborg 009. Though, soon enough, his work would then lead him to creating Kamen Rider, a series built out of retooling a concept from one of his one-shots called Skullman. Though what helps connect the classic Ishinomori back to the modern Fujimoto is another amazing mangaka, that being Go Nagai, the creator of famous series like Cutie Honey and of course Devilman. How Go Nagai got his professional start in manga is his work was noticed by Ishinomori, who took him in under his wing and trained him for about 3 years as his assistant. Though soon enough, Go Nagai felt like they were comfortable with what they've learned from Ishinomori and branched out into professional publishing on his own, establishing Dynamic Productions and beginning a new wave of manga altogether. And his work would become influential for many future series to come, like Kazuki Takahashi's Yu-Gi-Oh! And of course, Tatsuki Fujimoto's Chainsaw Man. So in a way, Kamen Rider and Chainsaw Man have a somewhat historical connection, which might lead to why the series somewhat feel similar at times. And when looking at the two series side by side, you notice that they have a somewhat similar premise, this being that Chainsaw Man and Kamen Rider tend to be about adventures of vagabonds who, due to unfortunate events, end up undergoing genetic modifications which result in them becoming a transforming superhero. Which you could argue is, for the most part, a pretty standard superhero origin story, so let's of course look at the motifs of both series' heroes, that being their transformed state. Now, Kamen Rider designs throughout generations have gone through some rather interesting changes, but more often than not, they keep to a number of legacy motifs. Firstly, of course, being the compound eyes on the suit, which of course references back to their grasshopper influence from the original Ichigo, and would go on to be one of the major visual motifs for the entire series. Then you have the gemstone found in the middle of their helmet, a visual representation of the concept of a third eye in Buddhist beliefs. It is usually blended in with the design of the rider, and often serves only as decoration beyond the original series. But sometimes they'll be used by the rider for minor abilities, like in the case of Build, it can project Sento's own calculations. And then finally, you have some sort of belt or as they're called from Heisei onward, driver, which are tools manipulated by the rider in order to transform as well as to engage their finishing moves most of the time, and sometimes they can be used to generate power. Now, the rider equivalent in Chainsaw Man is the hybrid devils, which, as the name would imply, is a basic hybrid of human and devil, which occurs through both some sort of medical surgery in which a piece of the devil is implanted in the person's body, with the only two listed examples both being hearts, but also a contract of sort that allows the person to freely transform into the devil state when they engage their devil trigger. Similar in idea to a rider's driver. Each hybrid also has a unique design which relates to the devil of origin, but all keep to a general motif as well, with them all matching up in part with one of Chainsaw Man's biggest inspirations, the guana transformations from Sotome Nihei's Abara, which is not only a common trend for Chainsaw Man, but for Fujimoto's monster designs throughout the history of his manga, though Denji's specific hybrid form is unique, as its design is the only one to be depicted with eyes. These eyes themselves are glowing circles from within the chainsaw that makes up his head. They are barely noticeable right away, and oftentimes aren't even shown until Denji shows a strong emotion, causing them to light up. And these eyes remind me a good bit of the circular compound eyes of most rider helmets, with it glowing even being a common trend within the compound eyes as far back as the original series. As well, while hybrid devils don't exactly call out Henshin, they do have specialized triggers which they need to engage with in a specific way to actually transform. As well, the way hybrids change reminds me a good bit of one of Fujimoto's earliest works, that being There Are Two Chickens in the Garden, which is all about shape-shifting aliens that would transform into similar looking creatures as the devils from Chainsaw Man, and they did call out Henshin before transforming, so it's possible that that element is just not vocalized. On a smaller note, Denji's identity as Chainsaw Man has become a somewhat secret identity, similar in nature to some Rider series, where the rider will transform in secret or keep their identity a secret from someone for a specific reason or another, allowing the rider's alter ego to soak up all the credit or blame for their actions. And, well, some of Denji's most successful finishing moves come in the form of a kick, from his fight with Aki to Katana Man and of course Santa Claus, which could be in part reference to one of Kamen Rider's longest standing traditions, the Rider Kick, which has taken many shapes and forms throughout the franchise. Also, to coincide some rider designs, Chainsaw Man's Hero of Hell form causes Denji's intestines to burst from his body and wrap around his neck, resembling that of a massive scarf, which is a design trend that seems clearly in reference to many different rider iterations, even if the inclusion of a scarf is somewhat controversial for some writers. Though, with a name like Hero of Hell, that reminds me, while not a major element of every season of Kamen Rider, there does seem to be a trend of riders having some sort of connection to the devil or demons in general. Just to name a couple examples, Philip in Double calls himself the Devil during their first transformation, and the silhouette of Double has the W-shaped antennas on the helmet match up with that of devil horns in silhouette. Then of course you have Kamen Rider Geo, with its protagonist trying to avoid a future where he becomes the Demon King, let alone the many different hell or demon related naming themes found throughout the series, like the Devil's Scientist in Build or Hell Brothers in Kabuto. Kamen Rider tends to have some sort of demonic or evil connection with their powers, which are then twisted for good, the same way hybrids, and specifically Denji, use his devil powers for good. Which leads us to another reoccurring element in Rider series, which I feel makes itself very apparent in Chainsaw Man, that being the tradition of Spider, Bat, and Cobra as a trio. As during the Showa era of early Kamen Rider, the first few shocker abominations that Ichigo would have to defeat is Man-Spider and Batman, as well as another creature called Cobra Man later in the series, but they ended up being the first monster to be destroyed and then revived, as well as the first monster to be given a stronger form. These monsters act as sort of a tradition throughout the franchise, especially through both Heisei phases, being reused or reimagined imagined as both monsters that the new riders must defeat, like in Kuga with the first few Grongis, or the tools in which a rider uses to assist themselves, like in Double with the memory gadgets. Though, sometimes only a few of the trio can make an appearance in the series, like in Build with Night Rogue and Bloodstock. They are the Bat and Cobra respectfully. The series lacks a proper spider, though Build would add a spider during the Build New World Kamen Rider Cross movie, with the antagonist of Killbus. But, when looking back at Chainsaw Man, the series has all three of the trio in it. As well, they are all connected to rather important characters in the story. Firstly, we have Bat Devil, who is essentially the first major antagonist of Chainsaw Man, and the first devil to make Chainsaw Man a known figure to the world. Bat is also tied to Power's own character, stealing her cat Meowie, or Nyanko in the Japanese, and after he is defeated, Power grows a somewhat trusting view of Denji, making her as loyal to him as she was ever going to be. Then, 2 arcs later, we have Akane and her Snake Devil contract. Akane has a direct connection to a number of major characters in the series, but if you'd like to know more about that, you can check out my individual video on her and Katana Man specifically, though most importantly, she ends up giving Katana Man the power to take vengeance on Denji, creating essentially a rival rider for Chainsaw Man right away. As well, she kills Himeno, someone who was originally going to be Denji's partner in early drafts of the story, and of course faces off against Aki, ultimately dying due to the terms of one of her devil contracts. Though in the same arc that she was the villain in, we also meet Princey, or Prinz, also known as the Spider Devil, and a member of the Public Safety Special Division. She was mostly silent throughout the series, but is strictly loyal to Makima, even willing to give up her life in order to assist Makima's efforts. And while all three of these devils don't really have a direct connection to each other, it would seem at least 2 out of 3 of them have a deeper connection to the major antagonist of the story, and are used by Makima in order to defeat the Gun Devil. Though, outside of visual similarities and some similar elements in the story, one of the most noticeable ties between Rider and Chainsaw Man is the series' views on what makes a hero. As in the case of Chainsaw Man, Fujimoto discusses his views on what makes a hero during an interview between the time of Part 1 and Part 2. He calls heroes flawed and very sad people at the end of the day. They may begin their life of heroics by choice, but oftentimes are forced to be a hero by something inside of themselves. This flaw of their character which never allows them to step off the battlefield or step down. This is what makes a hero someone who will always stand up and continue fighting no matter how many times they're knocked down. He also added that this kind of life leads to terrible loneliness, as the role of being a hero and living a normal life are unable to coexist with each other in Fujimoto's eyes, as their actions as a hero can easily lead to them being viewed as an idol of sorts by the common people, resulting then in a figure becoming a beloved and necessary role in the world, but the person behind the mask being ignored. And how Fujimoto sees it, a hero story can only be complete when they hang up the cape for good, whether it's by death, giving up, or finishing their mission. It's really all up to the narrative. And those viewpoints are what became key points in the design of Denji's character, from his inability to stay down no matter how many times he's killed, or his lack of understanding of what makes a normal life before and after he gains his own hero abilities. Though most importantly, Denji lacks the ability to actually have a long-lasting relationship with people throughout the series. From his family like Power and Aki, to his lovers like Reze and Makima, he is doomed to a life of personal loneliness, while also being praised endlessly as his alter ego, a trend that is still very present in the story of Chainsaw Man Part 2, resulting in him trying his best to use his love from people as Chainsaw Man to make up for the lack of love as Denji. In fact, it's Denji's hero attitude which caused Fujimoto to feel like he had to write a second part to Chainsaw Man in the first place. And Chainsaw Man's idea of a suffering hero can also be found in Kamen Rider, as one of the key design elements behind the look of a good number of riders' helmets is the small lines underneath the eyes of the mask. These are tear ducts, which represent the tears which form when a rider must fight against the people who made them who they are. And even through the pain, these heroes keep fighting, never giving up until their very last breath. These tear ducts are something that is baked into riders' designs all the way back to the original work by Ishinomori. When making Rider, they take the tears into consideration with the tone of the series, and sometimes they have them specifically removed from the writer's design to possibly inspire hope and create a hero who doesn't need to cry, with one of the most famous examples of this being Forze, who was created in hope of helping heal the heart of Japanese viewers after the devastating earthquake and tsunami of 2011. And this was partly inspired by a Kamen Rider statue that stood tall in wake of the disaster. These marks are more than just eye holes for the suit actors to see through. They are tears of a hero in a sense. Heroes who may not have an identity to call their own, or goals to pursue like everyone else, but they stand up to the evils of this world for those who do have those things. Because if fighting is a sin, it is a hero's job to take it on. And having to fight the person who helped create you is exactly the situation that Denji ends up in. As by the end of Part 1's story, he must fight against Makima, a character whose name was specifically chosen because if you remove the middle portion, it would be read as Mama, and someone who gave Denji a life worth fighting to protect. And yet, Denji has to fight her, all so that he can protect the world from her. This same world that had treated him like trash and will continue to kick him in the ass in the future. But it is those harsh moments that end up making the good ones feel all so special. Just like how a few good movies can make every bad one you've ever watched not ruin your love of cinema. And at the end of the day, most of everything I've listed here could be a coincidence. Fujimoto's writing style is very inspiration heavy, and he pulls from many places and combines together elements he likes from media in his work. I can't say for sure that he was directly inspired by Kamen Rider, though what I wanted this video to be is more than me just pointing at things related tangentially, as anyone can look at Denji riding Beam and call him a rider, or his battle with and then eating of Makima being reminiscent of Kamen Rider Amazons being full of cannibals and hyperviolence. What I wanted to say with this is that Chainsaw Man, to me, has the same essence as a Kamen Rider series. It's the same energy that makes me love both of them so deeply. And it's the same energy that I hope, maybe, if you've watched this video all the way through and has only experienced one or the other, you'll end up trying the other one out. And if you take my advice to heart and you do go out and you watch one or the others, tell me below which season you're planning to start with. I've been watching a couple myself. In fact, I've been wanting to talk about Kamen Rider for a while now. So I've slowly been going through the Heisei era. I watched a bit of Showa and I watched a bit of Reiwa, but my current favorite riders are sort of a tie between Shotaro from Double and Takumi from Faiz, but Faiz's suit is still my absolute favorite. And there's just so much in this series that I want to talk about that, like, I just need to get my head wrapped around it. I hope I can make more rider-focused content in the future, but I need to feel comfortable with the amount of knowledge I've seen on a certain series before I'm willing to make the full jump. So hopefully you can enjoy the wait there. If you want to see more Kamen Rider in the future, please tell me below. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/MedyNotTheBadGuy. Every little bit helps keep this channel flowing as smoothly as it does. And if you want to become a Henshin Hero, well, I can tell you right now that you can do so by buying a copy of Shimoneta, A Boring World with a Concentrated Dirty Jokes Doesn't Exist at buyshimoneta.com.